had a chance to visit with Allison and Connie and learn more about their experience in making collars. Let's take a look. Hi, we're here today with filmmakers Allison Bohl and Connie Castille. Thank you for coming in.
You're welcome.
We're going to talk about the films they've done, which are really closely related to Louisiana, and they're more of documentary on our culture and things like that. So I just wanted to ask you a few questions. How long have you guys worked together?
We've been working together since probably 2005 when we met and started with the idea of I Always Do My Collars First, the first film that we did together. And so it's been a while. Yeah.
And you guys met at Blue Moon, or you knew each other when you...
We were both students at the time. She was a student getting her master's and I was getting my undergrad. And so we started working in that environment and then eventually started doing the professional realm.
That's great. Now, with your films, let's say I Always Do My Collars First, how did that idea, what made you think about doing the film?
I was in graduate school, as Allison was saying, working on my master's, and in one of my courses entitled Women and Folklore, we studied about housework and how housework should draw the attention of folklorists. And ironing was mentioned briefly in it, but I decided to just make my paper on ironing because my mother, who's in the film, is a fanatic about ironing. So I grew up with this mentality of wrinkles and non-wrinkles, and all of her friends, you know, iron, and some of my relatives are in the film. And so I basically did my academic paper on the subject of ironing, and I interviewed my mom, and she basically directed me to all the other women in her community because she knew who ironed, who were the ironers, what kind of iron they had, you know, how they ironed. So basically 12 women were interviewed, I guess, for the paper, and then narrowed it down to 4 that, based on their personality and their stories seemed to represent the group, they were selected to be in a documentary. And so it was after that it just seemed like it lent itself to a visual expression other than just typing up and writing a journal paper.
Oh, that's great.
So that's how that came about.
I really enjoyed that one. Now, these women, you said one of them is your mother, and they're friends of hers, and they
relatives, 2 relatives, my mom, 2 relatives, and then just a dear friend of the group. So,
I noticed they had an ease in speaking in front. They didn't seem to be worried about the camera or anything like that.
No, they're great, and they all very comfortable with each other, and so.
So, in tying into maybe like the culture of South Louisiana, that was originally your idea, was the cultures, and then it turned into the ironing.
Well, you know, as folklore, it's things that there has to be a conversation between a group. So it was apparent that these women were talking about ironing, you know, like you would just talk about sitting over coffee. You're talking about what you ironed, just different things. So it was definitely a shared experience with all these women, and it was traditional in the sense that they all learned from their mothers, right? And there was a right way to iron and a wrong way to iron. Thus the title, I Always Do My Collars First. Some would argue that. And then you know, as the film shows, it became even deeper with, it's a nurturing act. It's basically how they show their love for their children. It represents them as a mother, of how their family looks when they step out of the house. So it was just rich with layers, and not to mention the artistic feeling that they get when they iron a garment, you know. Sort
of a sense of pride at the crispness of the way they're dressing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Allison, what kind of challenges did you find in making a film about ironing?
I think as far as the film, the main focus is ironing, but we're talking about things like life and death and family and traditions, and so we tried to kind of focus on small details that kind of tell a story and hopefully will make you like meditate on things like a sheet blowing in the wind for longer than you would imagine, to really look at it, and that makes you think about all these other stories that connect to that. And when you iron, what do you think about? And after we showed the film to people, when we were done with it, everyone had their own story. you know, it kind of evokes a lot of emotions from people, even though it seems like a really small, mundane, meaningless task.
Yeah, I noticed one of the women talking about how her father always wore a suit and tie, and when he passed away, it was very important that his clothes were just perfect and that everybody came dressed in honor of him because of the way he spent his life.
Right.
I found that tied in a lot.
And it also relates to birth as well, so kind of Connie did a great job of tying those two in together. So.
And also, it's not, yes, there is a part, a little tiny part of it that is a how-to. Okay, I start with the collar, I do the back panel, front panel, but obviously it's more than just a how-to video. And I think Allison's being able to tap into that emotion visually and portray it, I think was a gift. And to keep it, because we shot it over a long period of time, so to be consistent over that time of shooting, because obviously we were students, we couldn't devote full time to it, but it obviously has a great cinematic emotion to it that is almost like expressionistic, so it's not necessarily literal interpretation of what the women are saying, but she was able to visually capture the emotion, I think, that underlies it all.
Right.
And I might add, she bought an iron, and she's a method cinematographer, and she spent a day ironing just to kind of feel what they were feeling when
I'm
they
really
ironed.
good at ironing now because of it all.
Okay, so with the ironing, what do you think this says or means about the culture in South Louisiana?
Well, that's an interesting question. I'm not sure. Well, there's two things. What I've found is that it seems, because we've shown the film all over the country, and the feedback seems to be universal. So it doesn't seem it's confined to Cajun culture. It's probably more of a socioeconomic status and a generation. So for the women, you know, Cajun in particular, maybe it's more exaggerated because of the oppression of the culture, that you were embarrassed to be a Cajun. So in order, you didn't have a lot of money, you didn't have a lot of clothes, but as long as you were clean and ironed, you were right up there socially on the social ladder, right? So again, it was something shared by other women in that same generation and socioeconomic class, but maybe for the Cajuns it's more exaggerated given the history of the Acadians you know, being looked down upon, I guess.
Right.
So that's what I think about the cultural significance.
I think you guys captured that really well. I find that it goes over not just South Louisiana.
Yeah.
It's great.